AITA for skipping my child's birth to see my dying father. I had to make the hardest decision of my life a week ago, and I want some AITA judgment to see if I made the right decision, so please don't remove and say it needs to go into another subreddit cause I'll post there too. My wife went into labor a few weeks earlier than expected, and she ended up giving birth at the hospital. The day it happened she told me that she was in the hospital and needed me, however I had just left the house an half hour prior to go see my father who was likely about to die. He did a few hours after I arrived. I decided to see my father one last time, and I felt like it was more important than seeing my child's birth because I will raise him and see him every day for the next 18 plus years, and I really need to say some things to my father before he dies. My wife and the rest of her family are fucking pissed at me and said that birth is one of the most important parts of our lives and I needed to be there to support my wife and see the child. Obviously I didn't want this shit to happen, but I felt seeing my father for the last time was important, especially since I hadn't seen him in weeks and we weren't on good terms then, which we eventually resolved thankfully. If you'd like to provide any advice you're welcome to, as I could use some, but I'm mainly here for judgment. Edit. I'm so surprised this post went so viral. I last saw it with like 50 comments and I then saw this on trending, and I'm absolutely astonished by how viral this went. Thank you Reddit for all of your support and I really appreciate you guys. I'm amazed from the awards I got and upvotes. Once again thank you so much for your support in this hard time. My wife and I are on good terms, but I'm still getting shit from some of her family. She understands my predicament and doesn't hold it against me. NTA. It's a painfully difficult decision to make. It sucks that her family can't see your perspective on this, but I get it. Either way, I'm sorry for your loss and congratulations on the baby. I think you mean that. Unless someone in this story is an asshole. Edit. I was just thinking of the husband and wife. Didn't consider the wife's family. Nah. You needed to be there with your wife. You needed to be there with your dad. Literally a life and death situation. You could only be in one place. I understand why you chose to be at your father's deathbed. But you owe your wife big time. Because birth isn't about the baby as much as it is supporting your partner in the process. This is a true definition of an unwinnable situation. No matter which choice was made, there are huge life-altering consequences. It all comes down to the choices we can live with and the ones we cannot. You made the choice based on what you can live with. Now because you made the right choice for you at the time, and your wife does have the right to be upset. Just because it was the right choice for you doesn't mean you're exempt from people being upset by the choices. I'm so glad you were able to see your father and make peace with each other. Now this is a tough one, but I feel like everyone is right in their own way. Yes, the birth of your child is extremely important, but so is making peace with your dying father. I think both sides have good arguments. That being said, this is a shitty situation for everyone involved. I'm sorry for your loss. Also congrats on your new baby. The hardest choices require the strongest wills. Sorry op. NTA because you will see the child literally every day for 18 years and that was the last time to see your father. Deleted. Edit. I agree he isn't an asshole, because this is an impossible situation, but it's not just about the new baby. Labor is about the couple and the wife and her needing support during something physically, mentally, and emotionally grueling. This was an impossible decision. Of course. But the wife isn't an asshole here either. So maybe not. Nah. I understand wanting to be with your dad during his final hours. That moment was really important to you. However, I can understand your wife being hurt that you weren't with her. Going into an early labor that you're not fully prepared for can be scary and potentially dangerous, depending on how early several weeks is and the condition of the baby. Personally, I think I would try to be understanding, but I would still be deeply hurt if it happened to me. Now, I fully sympathize with your wife. It would be awful in my opinion not to have my partner with me for the hellish and dangerous miracle of birth. But I can't blame you. Your dad was dying. Awful situation. Now this one is beyond a Reddit post. This was very likely the hardest decision you will ever have to make. I don't think there is even an answer for what the right thing to do was. Your wife was scared and needed you during labor. Your father was dying, and you wanted to see him one last time. You did what you could with an absolutely shit scenario. You would have had regret, no matter what choice you made. Just make it up to your wife by making sure she gets lots of sleep and yummy snacks while she's taking care of that baby. She will come around. Yeah. This one fucks with me, because if I were him, I'd have made the same call, but as a woman I honestly don't know if I could get over him not being there. Horrible situation. Alright. You people are insane. You're allowed to feel whatever you want if your partner isn't there for you. You aren't allowed to be a dick about it or hold it against them, but not letting yourself feel what you feel is super unhealthy. Info: was anyone else able to be there to support your wife? Giving birth is not just an emotional thing. There is a real need to have a supportive partner there on game day. Could someone else have filled in for that role? Did you call someone to make sure she wasn't alone? NTA. In a vacuum. But if you left your wife in labor high and dry, that's a different story. Nah, but your comment that you get to see your kid every day for the next 18 years makes me understand why your wife is upset. Being there for the birth is not about the baby, but being there for your wife. You let her down. You may have had good reason for doing so, but by justifying it as I get to see the kid every day, you are minimizing how your choice impacted her. Honestly. Nah. But it's absolutely no wonder your wife is upset. I keep seeing you'll have 18 years with your child. But it's your partner you should have been concerned for. Early labors are not uncomplicated. She could have died. Make sure you have some compassion for that. It's a horrible choice you had to make. And I'm not going to judge you based on the one you did make. But her feelings are absolutely justified too. Yeah, if he used that argument when he talked to his wife, he shouldn't be surprised that she and her family are angry. If I was in labor and my husband told me I can't come. My dad is dying. Last chance to see him. Can see my kid every day when he lives with us. I'd be beyond pissed. Not because he wants to see his dad, but because I'd feel like he sees me as a birth machine. Not the asshole for the decision. But he might have been an absolute asshole to his wife. Nah, I totally understand needing to be there with your dad. It's important to be with those we love at the end. I'm sorry for your loss. That said, I completely understand why your wife is angry. Birth is a dangerous process, especially if labor is unexpectedly early. Your wife likely isn't upset because you chose one important event over another. She's probably upset because she knows that if she or the baby had been in distress, you would not have been there. I personally know several women who've had terrible, dangerous birth experiences, some that came on suddenly at the end of an otherwise routine labor, and barely made it through because of the hard work of the medical team. If I were in her shoes, I would be upset because my dangerous medical procedure that still occasionally leads to sudden death was ranked as second place. Both of you have good reasons for your choices and anger. It's very sad that you had to make that choice at all. You're not an asshole to make the choice you did. She's not an asshole to be hurt, upset, and angry. Honestly, counseling for all would be a great plan if you can swing it with insurance. Individual for both of you. Joint counseling to talk out everything. This wasn't a hard decision. It was an impossible one. As I always recommend when it comes to impossible decisions, pick the one that will make it easier to sleep at night. I'm passing on judgment here. Info. How long did you stay with your dad? How long was your wife in labor? When did you get to the hospital? You were in a terrible situation. And I feel for you. But I also think you are completely disavowing your wife's feelings and situation. You seem to feel being at the hospital was just for the baby, when it was to be by your wife's side as she went through a terrifying and extraordinarily painful and stressful ordeal. One which she was going through for your sake as much as for her own. You really let her down. Even though it was for a good reason. but more info is needed to really judge the situation. Your marriage may never recover from this. That does not necessarily mean you were an asshole, but it is a fact. Info. Was anyone with your wife during the delivery? That's a great question, and it would make all the difference for his judgment on this forum, I think. Info. Why couldn't you have seen your father and spent a little time with him and then gone to be by your wife's side? Or vice versa? What was the timeline? What happens first? Was your son born before your father passed? Info. Did your wife have her family there to support her? This is a key question. He's an asshole either way, but without family it's way worse, even and maybe hard to salvage the marriage tbh. Info. Why did your wife just tell you that she was in the hospital? How did she get there? Did you tell her that you were going to see your dad anyway, or did you leave her hanging? How early was your baby? And why did your wife go into labor early? Was there anyone with your wife at the hospital? Was your father's death expected? How long had you known? I feel like it's likely in that scenario, but I really do need more information. Also, were you getting updates on the birth from someone there? How long after the birth did you call or FaceTime? Did you turn your phone off / completely ignore for the 4 hours you were with your dad? NTA. It sounds like your wife had a good support system, and she is also forgetting that you missed out on the birth too. A moment in your life you won't get back. NTA. This is definitely a situation with no right answer. Both things were important, and in the end it was your decision. You chose the moment you chose for a reason. Don't regret that. I'm sure it meant the world to your father. However, your in-laws are absolutely tough for being mad at you. The only one who has that right is your wife. And even then, hopefully it is something she can forgive. You made a difficult choice. Don't regret spending time with a loved one. Sometimes there is no overall right answer. If you enjoyed this video, then hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more future videos.